Hello, hello, everybody. I am Dr. Kelly OMD, your board certified OBGYN and healthcare executive, here to help you live your healthiest and wealthiest life. And the way that we do that is through a program called Viva Life SPF Me. You are here in our Ask Dr. Kelly L. Moore webinar, which happens on Mondays at 4:30 p.m. Pacific and 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. But then also we have a podcast that broadcasts 5 days a week, and it is called Viva Life SPF Me. So when you get a chance, go ahead and subscribe, and there will be a plethora of information for you. Thirdly, we have an affirmation room where we come together with our journals and we talk about those things that we want to achieve in our lives and how that we can come together as a community so we really can live our healthiest and wealthiest life. And that's called the Viva Life SPF Me experience. So when you get a chance, go ahead and click the link in the bios or the information that was sent to you so that you can understand a little bit more and you can join us, because every single Viva Lifer is thriving, not just surviving. That being said, we have a special guest here for you, Attorney Michelle Adams. I got a chance to meet her at a retreat in Colorado, and let me tell you, it was a time had. She had the room at their feet and in full attention. So tonight, let me present Attorney Michelle Adams. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and the top 3 things you want us to take away tonight?
Well, first of all, thank you, Dr. Kelly, for having me on. I may have turned the room or put them on their feet or whatever, but you commandeered that entire room and you did your thing. And I'm like, who is this woman and why don't I know her? So I'm glad we were able to connect here. So as Dr. Kelly mentioned, I am in Colorado, New York native, and have lived here for way too many years that I can even count. I'm an estate planning attorney by background. I'm also an author. I'll tell you about the book, and a coach and a speaker. And it is my love to come and talk about these very important issues, because we know that without some of these things in place, we can leave a little bit of a hot mess. But we're going to talk even beyond the estate plan and the things that really matter, in my opinion.
Awesome. We cannot wait to hear what you have. So for the new people in the room, what we do is we allow the attorney to go ahead and speak, and then we'll open up for Q&A. We start with our Viva Lifers first as our members, and then our guests that we've invited. So get your questions ready. If you want to type anything in the chat, you can do so while she's speaking. But Attorney Adams, you have the floor.
Well, thank you. And I neglected to say my top 3 takeaways. So, one, your legacy is more than your stuff. And I really want you all to hear that message, because we get it twisted sometimes and we think it's just all about the money, and that it's not. The other piece is generational wealth means nothing if you don't have a plan. One of the things that drive me crazy is when people talk about generational wealth all the time, but they don't put any context around it. And the third thing is, it's never too late to start. Just start where you are with what you have. No matter how old or how young you are, it's never too late to begin. So let me start off first with the fact that legacy is more than your stuff. When we hear the term legacy, I know that it is a loaded word. Oftentimes, when we hear that term, we may think of the very rich or the very wealthy or the very fabulous. You know, pick your celebrity of choice. But when you hear the name Oprah Winfrey, certain things come to mind about the legacy that she is leaving. When you hear the name of, let's say, Bill Gates or someone along those lines, someone that you put into that billionaire status, that also creates a certain image of what legacy is. But I want to challenge you all that it doesn't matter how much money you have, whether you're a celebrity or if you have, I don't know, a gazillion followers on pick your social media channel of choice. All of that does not make a legacy. What really makes a legacy is the impact that you're going to have in the world. And that's something that all of us, regardless of how much money we have, can be intentional about what we're doing. I will say this. As an estate planning attorney, when people come to me and they say, well, Michelle, I really don't have much. I don't have much of a legacy to leave. I have to stop them in their tracks, because I want them to know it's not just about the money. So what am I talking about? I wrote a book about what it really means to leave gifts for a lasting lifetime. And it's called Family Strong, 7 Gifts for a Lasting Legacy. And of course, when people hear that I'm an attorney, they think, oh, it's all about estate planning. And I'm like, no, that's just one small component of it. Really, it's about the tangible things that you can leave right now. So the book talks about the gift of your story. What is the story that you want to leave to the next generation? And this is regardless of whether you have children or not. My aunt never had any children, but she seeded into us, her nieces. So I want to take off the table too that unless you have children, there's no way that you can leave a legacy. That's not true. So the gift of your story. What are the things that you have been taught over the years? What are the experiences that you have lived through that you know someone would find value from? Those are the things that we want to make sure we're sharing, and it costs nothing. Also, the gift of connection. How are we coming together as a community, as a family, as a unit to make sure that we're continuing to foster and strengthen those bonds? We also talk about the gift of wellness. Dr. Kelly, you would appreciate this. And this is not just wellness in the form of physical health. Of course, that's a component of it, but it's also our mental wellness. It's our social wellness. It's our spiritual wellness. In the book, I talk about a story where my grandfather, who I never met, he died before I was born. He was in the hospital and he was dying from a form of cancer. And when my mom came into the room, he made a special point of praying not only for the one grandchild, which was my sister, who was the only one born at that time, but he prayed over the entire set of grandchildren that he had never met that was to come. And I just thought that was so powerful when I heard this story. It's like, wow, he didn't have to have any money to leave to me or to my mom or to, anyone else. That gift of a prayer spoken over his yet unborn grandchildren, that to me spoke volumes, and it meant a lot to me in hearing that story. Then, of course, I talk about the gift of preparation, and I'll circle back to that in a minute. But then there's also the gift of compassion. What are we doing to give back to the next generation or to our community in which we live? If we have two hands, if we have 2 feet, heck, if we have one hand or one foot, if we have a voice, we can always do something to give back to those who might need our support, who might need the gifts and talents that we bring to the table. And then there's also the gift of curiosity, which I think is something that also falls up under the lines of how many of us love to travel? I know I do. And one of the things that my parents gave to me was that gift of travel, the love of traveling, experiencing new cultures. I remember the first time, it wasn't any place fancy, but one of my first memories was taking a trip to the Dutch country in Pennsylvania. And I don't know, I was probably about 10, 11 years old. And I remember apple butter. I had never heard of apple butter before, but it was just something that I fell in love with. And when I saw it in the store many years later as a young adult, it just brought back those memories of going to the Dutch Pennsylvania country with my parents. And then finally, I talk about the gift of that next generation, the gift of possibilities and seeding into them and letting them know that they are more than the story that they've been told, that they are more than the things that people may have said about them, that they have purpose, that they have possibility, that they have value. And what are we doing to speak life into these young people? And again, it doesn't have to be your own children. These could be people who are just a part of your circle. Maybe it's nieces, nephews, maybe it's godchildren, maybe it's just the neighbor next door who has a young person. What are you doing to intentionally put life, seed life, encourage those individuals? So in the book, which is why I say that your legacy is more than your stuff, all of those things that I mentioned have nothing to do with money. It's all about how we're showing up for other people and what we're doing to make sure that we're having an impact in the most positive way possible. The second takeaway is generational wealth means nothing unless you have a plan. So bear with me, y'all. This is where the attorney comes in. So oftentimes you'll hear, oh, I don't think I need anything. The family will work it out. Said no one ever. Let me just tell you this. People don't work it out. What they end up doing is having to go to court, and then the judge will work it out. And you do not want that. You want to be the person that's proactively putting the plan in place. So what does that look like? It could look like having a will. It could look like having a trust. Dr. Kelly shared a video that I had seen before, and I just loved it because the woman was talking about, well, mom, don't just give me this house outright. Make sure you put it into the trust, which I completely agreed with. The one thing I would say that goes further is that once it's put in a trust, you want to make sure that things are still being properly maintained. And the piece that was missing is that even though it's in a trust, and let's say the parent passed away, if that child or whoever was receiving the property decided to sell it, then yes, there will be a capital gains issue at the time of sale. So again, we just have to be very thoughtful about what the goal is. I have families that I work with that want to be like the Rockefellers, and so they keep their assets in trust for a really long period of time. Then I have other people who say, you know what, Michelle, I'm not trying to have that much control. At my death, I want my kids or my loved ones to receive it outright. Whatever the goal is, we can create a plan that supports the goal. But if you just say, I'm going to leave it to chance to make things and things will magically work out, I promise you that is a path leading to disaster and family heartache. One of my main goals that I always tell people is that I'm about family harmony. And what can I do? What can we do to make sure that we're increasing and maximizing that family harmony? The other piece that I'll mention very quickly, just about having a plan, is that the plan is not just about the money component of it. What happens if you get sick, Dr. Kelly, and now you need someone to step in and make medical healthcare decisions on your behalf? Do you have a plan in place for that? Or do you think, oh, my two kids who've argued all their lives, they'll just figure it out and come together and come to an agreement? No, most likely what's going to happen is that child A is going to say one thing, child B is going to say something else, and now we have conflict. And just keep in mind, whenever there's conflict, there's always court, and whenever there's court, there's always money. So the goal is to make sure that you are avoiding those very things. So when I talk about incapacity planning, that means having a medical power of attorney in place. It means having a financial power of attorney in place so that if you are no longer able to manage your finances or you're no longer able to advocate for your healthcare decisions, you have someone in place who can do that job for you on your behalf. And I just want to say one other thing for those of you who have minor children. We always want to make sure that there is a plan in place for those minor children. Because again, if it's a situation where you are hospitalized or you pass away, who is in place to take care of those minor children? Well, you may say, well, my spouse or the other parent. But supposing there is not an other parent, or the other parent is someone that you would just roll over in your grave knowing that that person was in charge, because again, not everyone gets along in family relationships, then you need to have a clear plan as to what should happen to your child if that circumstance should arise. And by the way, don't make it a surprise. If you're naming your best friend or some other person as the child's guardian, please let that person know. So it's not a situation of tag, you're it. Sorry, I never told you about it. So again, that theme of always having a plan. And then the last thing I want to say, that third takeaway, it's never too late, you're never too young, and you're never too old. And what do I mean by that? There is always something that you can do when you're leaving a legacy. So again, of course, if you have wealth that you want to leave to someone else, you have a plan in place. Make sure you contact an estate planning attorney in your area, in the state in which you live, and that person can help walk you through it. If you say, well, Michelle, I might not be at that point yet where I need an estate plan, maybe I'm still developing some assets and I'm still working on some things, what can you do now? What you can do now is leave a letter. Leave a letter to your loved one, whether it's a child, whether it's a parent, whether it's just someone special in your life, just to let them know, hey, listen, here's what you have done for me. Here are the things that I appreciate. And I really want you to know this before I pass on. One story I'll share is that this was a few years ago, before the pandemic, actually. And someone had reached out to me. She had kind of neglected making updates to her estate plan. And finally, the son called and said, Michelle, my mom's in the hospital and it's not looking good. And she really, really needs to update the plan. So I trek on to the hospital and I promise you I was there for maybe about 4 or 5 hours. And the mother was completely coherent. She knew exactly what was going on. And we made the necessary changes. And while I was waiting for, I think, something to print, one of her family members called and you could tell it was someone younger. And this family member was not going to be able to make it to the hospital in time. She was out of state. And I said, oh, I tried to excuse myself from the room so they could have a private conversation. And the client, the mother said, no, 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 you stay. And what I heard her say to her family member was, I'm so proud of you. I see so much greatness in you. I know that you're going to do wonderful things. And as I'm sitting there taking part in this very intimate or listening in on to this very intimate conversation, I was just struck with, wow, that person on the phone, I'm sure she was just filled up. I'm sure her goal was to encourage the family member who is dying. But instead, she received the gift of being encouraged herself. And I know that had to have left a lasting impact on her because it left one on me. And so it was just a privilege that I had to be in the room at that time. And I share the story to say, I don't want you to be on your deathbed to say that to a family member or a loved one. Write a letter to them now. If you say, Michelle, I'm not a writer, I don't know what to say, do a recording. Sometimes it's much easier just to have that recording. And personally, there's nothing like hearing the voice of your loved one. I think about my grandparents who were Jamaican born, and I would just love to be able to hear that lilt in their voice again and hear about the stories that they would share with me. And, you know, if I had a recording, I would still have held on to that because it's just a connection that you just can't get back. I can't hear their words anymore, but only in my dreams. So write a letter, have a recording, or consider leaving something of intangible value to your loved ones. And I'll end with this. I have a TEDx talk too, P.S. And in the talk, it's called Generational Wealth Remix. And I talk about how we need to get away from the concept of generational wealth being just about money. But I show this here, it's a cross. And it's not just like a fancy cross, it is legitimately a plastic cross that glows in the dark. And so my grandfather passed away in 1980, so it's been a long time. And I remember after his death, my grandmother was just, you know, giving out things. And this has no material value, but it was something that I always saw on his nightstand. And it had a glow in the dark. And so 45 years, yeah, 45 years later, this plastic cross still on occasion will glow in the dark. And for me, it's just a reminder that my grandparents, my grandfather is still talking to me, giving me a message of some sort. And so I'm going to leave you with this. It doesn't always have to be lots of cash, lots of money. Of course, who doesn't like that? I would. But sometimes it can be something just as special as a cross that glows in the dark that reminds you of a cherished memory or a loved one. Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I'm trying to like hold the tears back because I absolutely remember my grandmother who lived to be 97 years old, parlaying things exactly what you said, showing me the things that she wrote in my head, and here, this was your daddy's this was your auntie's this, and I still have those things, and I'm like, yeah, that right there, that's priceless. It is absolutely priceless. Definitely appreciate, whatever money was left, but that was priceless. So thank you for sharing not only your top three, but I don't think any of us actually expected all that you just poured into us, because when we think about what really matters to us, it is that connection and that love. We're going to get everything else in order. Believe me, Viva Lifers and guests, we're going to get everything else in order. But that connection and that love is just going to be so important, and that lasts for generations beyond generations. So that being said, Viva Lifers, go ahead and get your questions ready. You can ask all the questions that you desire. I did see a question from one of our Viva Lifers that says, please repeat the name of your book.
Yes. So it's called Family Strong, 7 Gifts for a Lasting Legacy. And it's not available on Amazon, so don't go look there. You can go to familylegacystrong.com and the book is available there.
Okay, thank you so much. And I think it was put in the chat. Thank you so much for our Viva Lifer who put that in the chat for us. Another question that was posed is, what type of paperwork or how should we prepare before we go meet with an estate planner?
Yes, thank you for that question. I think that was Amanda. So most estate planning attorneys will provide you with kind of like a brief questionnaire that really delves into who you are, married or single or partnered, are there children, things along those lines. So they have a general idea of what you, and ask you, well, what are your top concerns? What's always helpful though, and regardless of whether you see an attorney or not, and unfortunately, these fires just make me think about this, is to make sure that you have identified different accounts where you have assets. So this is something all of us can do right now is if you own a home, who's the mortgager on that or who's on title to the property? What bank accounts, where do you bank at? If you have investments, where are those investments located? Those are all things that are not only going to be helpful for you, but it's also going to be helpful when you go to meet with that attorney so that they have a sense of, okay, tell me what's going on here. The main documents that most attorneys will prepare are the essential five. That would be a will, financial power of attorney, medical power of attorney, a HIPAA release. And a HIPAA release says that, yes, whoever I name to make medical decisions, they have access to my medical records. And then we also typically do an advance directive, otherwise known as a living will. So a living will is different from a last will and testament. The last will and testament is all about the money. The living will, also known as an advance directive, is all about what are your wishes if it's end of life for you? What do you want the doctors to know, whether you want to be kept on life support or something else? To me, that's one of a vital document because it provides clarity to your loved ones and they're not struggling to figure out or feeling the guilt of what should we do? You've already outlined and shared what your wishes are.
So I hope everybody got that. She told you something you can do today. So hope you're writing this down and going from and making sure that we're thinking about what action can I take today so that we can get this set up. One of the goals of Viva Life is to make sure everybody has those top 4 things that she just mentioned and have those in place in the next 6 months. So thank you for that. And the answer, do you suggest a will or living trust or a combination of both? And if you choose a living trust, what all should you put into it? Great question.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Danica. Or is it, well, I'll say Danica. If it's Danica, forgive me. Oh, Danica. Okay, perfect. So anytime we do a trust, a living trust, we always do a partner or a companion will to go along with it. So if you have a trust, the will automatically be partnered with it. Why? Because there are times when people may set up a trust, but they don't move assets into the trust. In fact, that's really one of the biggest mistakes that I see. People hear, oh, I need to set up a trust, and that's great, but you also need to what we call fund the trust. So you FUND. So we want to make sure that assets are actually moved into the trust. If for some reason, and I'll just use the example of Powerball because why not? So let's just say you win Powerball or the lottery or, whatever it may be. If that money is still sitting in an account and it has not been moved over into the trust, now at your death, it depends, but it may have to go through probate. And if it has to go through probate, we want to make sure that there's a will so that that will can be submitted to the court. So just know that the will serves as a backup. It's almost like the little sister or the little brother to the trust, only in the event that the trust was not properly funded or it was not funded at all. And should you choose a living trust, what all should you put in it? Most times, what we will do is put your primary residence. So, and if you said, well, Michelle, I don't own my home, I still have a mortgage on it, that's okay. You can still put that home into the trust. We'll also look at investments. So let's just say you had an investment at Fidelity. I'm not condoning Fidelity or, but any type of investment company, then you want to make sure that either title to that asset or the beneficiary is the trust. So typically we're looking at investments, we're looking at property. You could also have if you have an LLC, we can move that into the trust. The one thing that most people will not put into the trust are your vehicles. Because if you have a vehicle and it's moved into the trust and you get into some type of accident, it could just create some additional issues. So we keep those vehicles, those cars outside of the trust. I hope that helped. Thumbs up?
Absolutely, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, you're welcome.
Awesome. So there was a question. Of course, people want to know, how do they get in touch with you? Are you accepting clients? Is it only in Colorado, or do you have recommendations if it's out of a different state? How does that work?
Yes, so I am licensed in the state of Colorado, so I can only provide legal assistance to people in the state. If you live in a different state, whether it's California or Texas or New York or wherever, let me know or somehow connect with me and we'll figure how that will work out. And I can give you recommendations or referrals to people in other states. So please just reach out to me. And I should have started off by saying, too, typical lawyer disclaimer, just know that the information that I'm sharing, it's not legal advice. The information I'm sharing is educational in purpose. So please don't now draft up a document and say, as per Michelle Adams, this is legal.
Absolutely. And one of the nice things is when you click the button, it actually says that before you actually come on here as well. But I appreciate you doing that too, so we
Yes.
can make sure that we have it. So everything that we do in Viva Life is educational purposes only. Please speak with your own primary care doctor or lawyer, accountant, tax professional if you need help.
That part.
I think I got it right.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
one more question. Can trust be modified by a family member at any time?
So thank you for that question, Diana. Only the person who created the trust has the legal authority to make modifications to it. Now, there's always a caveat, there's always an exception. Let's say that that person is no longer has capacity. So now the trustee, the backup, is needing to step in. It depends. Classic attorney answer, but it depends on what type of modifications are wanting to be done. As an example, let's just say there are 5 kids. The person who created the trust is now hospitalized and incapacitated. The backup trustee wants to remove all 5 kids and only name themselves. No, no, ma'am, no, sir. They would not be able to do that. So typically, the ability to modify only rest with the person who created the trust. And then Dr. Kelly, I'll just answer this one other one that I see here. Do the documents need to be notarized? Again, it depends. Most states have all states have different requirements as to what the legal requirements are for your estate plan. I will say defer to, yes, have everything notarized, just to make sure I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
Love it, love it, love it. Great questions. Thank you so much. Not sure if I don't see any other questions in there. I did have a question because at this very moment, am going through another death in the family. And one of the things that we've noticed is nothing was set up. There's no beneficiaries, or maybe there are, and nobody can find anything. So thank you for mentioning the whole point of making sure things are in a place, in a fire safe place, and not just you know about it, but other people that you trust know about it, so we can actually get this out on the table. Have a family meeting where you sit down and say, okay, this is what's going on with those that you trust, so that we always say, as y'all know, prior military, you don't die with the information, okay? Really important there as well. One of the things that has come up as well is, and I saw this online, about people have life insurance policies, annuities, whatever the case may be. It takes time for those. So they take the life insurance policy to the funeral home, and they like get a loan on the life insurance policy. Is there another way to do this so that you actually have money set aside for the life insurance, for the death and the burial and
Yes.
the other stuff?
Yes. Now, I will say this is not my lane or my ministry in terms of, giving exact advice. However, what I would say is it's really good if you have money set aside. Perhaps it's, in a separate account somewhere just for that purposes, or even better, is to have a special policy, a burial policy just for those purposes. So there are other people well more versed than myself about what the mechanics behind that will look like. And it's no shade to like the GoFundMe's, but we don't want that to have to be our insurance plan, right? To have to raise money for the burial of our loved ones. So again, being very intentional about saying, listen, here's the money that's been set aside for this. And here's the person I'm putting in charge of it. And know that you use this money for my care. And if you can actually have those instructions already laid out, perhaps have have it already paid with the funeral home, that is ideally the best way to go. And just a footnote to that, make sure that you get some kind of documentation from said funeral home that says, oh yes, we do have this, it's been paid off in full, because there have been instances where, all of a sudden the funeral home can't find anything. And it's like, really? Well, here's the receipt that I have. Let's go.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. My grandmother, when she passed away, she had it all set up. So it is literally, and I know this sounds crazy. I know we say this about weddings, enter husband here. It was like enter person here, and everything was done. So you can actually focus on the memory of the experience that you had with that person, and the family can come together and be there in love and joy and peace and harmony and celebrate and not frustrate each other. So huge.
Celebrate, not frustrate.
Celebrate and frustrate.
Mhm.
That being said, I know that there's some people that definitely want to know, how do we, get in touch with somebody, and recommendations for Florida, Texas, and all that good stuff. Please go ahead and follow us on our social media. We'll get the information out, how you can get in touch with Attorney Adams. Actually, Attorney Adams, if there's any website or way that they can get in touch with you, please let us know that now. Uh,
Yeah.
we can
So
chat as well.
okay, perfect. You can follow me or reach out to me on Instagram, and that's Family Legacy Attorney. I believe that's how you can look that up. I'm not the best. Family Legacy Attorney. And I will respond to that message and get you those referrals. And I saw the one in Florida. Just let me know what part of Florida so I can kind of narrow that down so it's someone closest to where you are. And then, of course, my website is coloradofamilylegacy.com. I have lots of good information, articles on there that I think you would find helpful. Again, just note that every jurisdiction is different, but general information is always better than no information at all. And while I love the YouTubes and the Googles, don't get all of your information from YouTube University or Google Academy, because everyone has an opinion and sometimes those opinions are not correct. So feel free to look at the articles on my website, the blog post as well.
Awesome. Freewill.com. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, all right. So again, I'm biased, right? That said, if you do not have children, if you do not have property, if you are not married, um, perhaps that could be something that would work for you. And that's all I'll say.
Okay, so there's a place to start.
Yes.
There's subject matter expertise to help you in these times as well. Well, I just want to say, how many people actually have wills? And while I'm closing out, I want y'all to put, yes, I have a will. No, put it in the chat. Yes, I have a will, or no, I don't, and I need help. I just need to know that, because there are goals and actions that we are taking in Viva Life, because I promise you, I want everybody set up for success. So that being said, Attorney Adams, thank you for being on here. Not only, like I told you, you showed out in Colorado, and you showed out right here on Viva Life. We appreciate you. We thank you. And we are sending blessings to you, that you will continue to have a highly successful book launch and sales, as well as in your attorney practice. We appreciate that.
I thank you, and wishing those same things right back at you. And as someone said, my condolences to you with the loss of in your family. And I'm just thankful for this forum that you've opened up to me. So thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. And thank you, everybody. And thank you, all my Viva Lifers and guests who are on here. Like I said, please go ahead and sign up with us, register. We're here Mondays, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time and 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. We have a podcast called Viva Life SPF Me that talks about real topics and subjects that are going to make a positive impact in your life. If you want to join us as a Viva Lifer, we also have that link that was sent to you whenever you registered. Please think about being a visionary. We are going to help you thrive, not just survive. We educate, we encourage, and we inspire so that you can live your healthiest and wealthiest life spiritually, physically, financially, mentally, and emotionally. And with that, Michelle, if you'll stay on, and everybody else, have a wonderful evening. And don't forget to do what? Viva Life. All right, all right. Thank you for being a part of the Viva Life experience. I'm Dr. Kelly OMD, board certified OBGYN and healthcare executive. If you like what you heard, then please go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. The reason why is because we are trying to educate, encourage, and inspire 1 million people to live their healthiest and wealthiest life. And this is what we're bringing you. We're bringing you educational videos. We're bringing you podcasts. We are bringing you webinars with subject matter experts, including myself, about the topics that affect you the most. So go ahead, like, subscribe, and share. We are everywhere. Have a wonderful day. Viva Life.